Neil Ratner Rock Doc here with a story. What do the songs Layla, Wonderful Tonight, and Bell Bottom Blues have in common? You give up? The answer is Pattie Boyd. But a little background first. Pattie Boyd began modeling in 1962 and became very successful, appearing on the covers of both Vogue and Vanity Fair magazines. And in 1964, her agent sent her on an audition for a small part in a Beatles film, A Hard Day's Night. Now, she got that very small part as a schoolgirl fan of the band. Now, of all the Beatles, she was most attracted to George. And by lunch break on her first day of filming, she was sitting next to him. Now, Pattie was beautiful and sort of famous in her own right, and George was also very, very attracted to her. As a matter of fact, one of the first things he said to her was, "Will you marry me?" And when she looked at him like he was crazy, he said, "Well, if you won't marry me, will you have dinner with me tonight?" Now, Pattie had a famous photographer as a boyfriend at the time and said no. But she broke up with the boyfriend a couple days later and she started seeing George. And a few years later, on January 21st, 1966, the two got married, with Paul McCartney as George's best man. Now, Pattie was interested in Eastern mysticism, and she was a member of the spiritual regeneration movement who were early proponents of transcendental meditation. And it was Pattie who inspired the Beatles to go to the lecture of Maharishi Mahesh Yogi and meet him. And of course, when they got taken by TM, she accompanied the Beatles to India. And we all know how many songs that trip produced. All right, so Eric Clapton and George Harrison became friendly in the late 60s, and by 1970, Eric had fallen madly in love with Pattie. And the two started having a secret affair. Now, according to Boyd, we met secretly at a flat in South Kensington. Eric had asked me to come because he wanted me to listen to a new number he had written. He switched on the tape, turned up the volume, and played me the most wonderful, powerful, moving song I had ever heard. It was Layla. Now, Eric was in the band Derek and the Dominoes at the time, and many of the songs on their album, Layla and other assorted love songs, were written for Pattie. Let's listen a little. Okay, now, that same night that he played Layla for her, George and Pattie went to a party at rock impresario Robert Stigwood's house. Now, George lost track of Pattie and finally found her in the garden talking with Eric, according to Boyd. George came over and demanded, "What's going on?" Eric said, "I have to tell you, man, that I'm in love with your wife." George was furious, turned to me and said, "Well, are you going with him or coming with me?" Well, that night, she went home with Harrison. On another occasion, Clapton, he was crazy in love with Pattie. He showed up at the Harrison home dead drunk, and he challenged George to a guitar duel. George handed him a guitar and an amp. It was sort of like in the 18th century where pick your pistol, you know what I mean? And for 2 hours, without a word, they dueled. At the end, nothing was said, but the general feeling was that Eric had won. he hadn't allowed himself to get riled or to go in for instrumental gymnastics as George had. Even when he was drunk, his guitar playing was unbeatable. Now, Harrison and Boyd divorced in '74, and she began living with Eric a short time later. Now, one night in 1976, while Eric was waiting for Pattie to get ready to attend Paul and Linda's annual Buddy Holly party, he started to fool around on the guitar. And by the time she came downstairs, he had written the song Wonderful Tonight for her. Layla. Now, in 1979, Eric Boyd and Pattie Boyd Harrison got married. George and Eric, believe it or not, had stayed very good friends, and as a matter of fact, George played at Eric and Pattie's wedding with both Ringo and Paul. Unfortunately, Lennon couldn't be there due to immigration problems, so you would have had a Beatles reunion. Eric and Pattie lasted till 1988 when they divorced, but Eric wrote one more song about the end of their relationship, and he called it Old Love. And according to Boyd, the end of a relationship is a sad enough thing, but to then have Eric writing about it as well, it makes me more sad, I think because I can't answer back. Here it comes. Beautiful. Such a great song. And of course, Duane Allman played the guitar solo on the original. All right, so that's my story. I hope you enjoyed it. Neil Ratner Rock Doc. Have a great day, and I'll see you all real soon. Going out with Layla. Beautiful day here in Woodstock. I hope it's a nice day where you are. All right now. See you soon.